Good morning, first graders, and welcome back to class. Today we have a really exciting lesson that I want to learn about. But before we get into that lesson, I want y'all to pull a piece of paper out, and on this piece of paper, on the board, you're going to look at this word, historical figure Abraham Lincoln. And I know you don't know who that is, but on your piece of paper, I want you to put your best guess. Maybe who he was, what he did, and then after a little while, we're going to discuss it, okay? So, go ahead. Okay, class. Now that you've written down a few facts or what you think and who he was, I want y'all to let me know. So, who can tell me what they wrote down?
Oh, I put down he has a tall hat.
That's very good. Anybody else?
I put down he's an honest man.
Wow, those were some really good facts and observations that y'all have made and put down based on his name. And like y'all now know, we will be learning about Abraham Lincoln. And who was he? Well, let's start off by reading a little read aloud book about him. Okay, so let's start it.
Illustrated by Christopher Eliopoulos. I am Abraham.
Grammarly does more than catch errors. With Grammarly, you can find
Abraham Lincoln. When I was little, even young boys were expected to work on the farm and hunt animals for food.
Abe, you coming? I'll catch up with you later.
I preferred to read. I also loved animals. When I was 10 years old, I saw a group of boys playing with some turtles.
They found turtles? I love turtles. Look, it's making the turtles run fast. It's the fastest turtle ever.
But as I got closer, I realized they weren't playing. They were taking hot coals and putting them on top of the turtles to see what would happen. To them, it was harmless fun. In that moment, I could have just walked away. When you're 10 years old, it's hard to do the right thing, but someone has to.
Let this turtle go. What did you say? You heard me. Let it go.
Those boys let the turtle go. Soon after, I wrote one of my first essays about how hurting animals is wrong. That might not seem like a big deal, but back then, most kids and even adults didn't know how to write. In fact, the state of Indiana was so new, schools weren't even built yet. I went to school for barely a year, total. But that didn't stop me using chalk. I practiced writing the alphabet on trees. I even wrote in the dirt of the cornfield.
Abe, how's the corn coming? Great, Dad.
When it came to learning, my best teachers were simply books. I loved books so much, I once walked 6 miles. I'm serious, 6 miles to get one.
6 miles? That's too far for a book. Not for this one.
I'd read while my horse was resting, and while waiting in line at the local store, and in one of my favorite positions, with my feet up on a tree. Before long, I had read every book in the neighborhood, from the Bible to Aesop's Fables to Robinson Crusoe. But one of my favorites, a book about George Washington. I'd even copy my favorite parts on pieces of wood.
Did you know that George Washington was a friend of men? You're a strange boy, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, but I'm gonna be on the pen someday. What's a penny?
When I was 22 years old, we moved to Illinois, where I met a group known as the Clary's Grove Boys.
Think you're better than us? I never said that. Don't be cheeky. Show us what you got.
Everyone in town knew they were bullies. I didn't like bullies, but I was the new guy. When they challenged me, I didn't have much choice. Today, some may call it a fight, but it was really a wrestling match. Me against against their leader, Jack Armstrong. Back then, the rule was, once you grab your opponent, you couldn't break your hold. But Jack did, so he could grab my leg and send me flying. I wasn't mad and lost. Everyone loses sometimes. What got me upset? He had cheated.
You didn't play fair. Maybe you want to fight us all.
Within seconds, they all surrounded me. They were waiting for me to back down or to lose my cool. Instead, calmly and confidently, I told them,
If I have to, I will fight every single one of you, fair and square.
they knew I meant it.
You're a strange kid, Abraham Lincoln, but you've got guts. You know, I'm going to be on the penny. What's a penny?
Sometimes the hardest fights don't reveal women, but they do reveal character, especially when you're fighting for something you believe in. Still, not every struggle brought a victory. Years later, I saw a group of slaves chained together in a boat on the Ohio River. Back then, not all people were free. Some were slaves. Just because of the color of their skin, they were forced to work without pay. They were treated terribly. I never forgot the sight of that boat. I didn't do anything that day, but for years, the memory of those people, it haunted me. I was still thinking about them when I became president. I lost 4 elections.
Okay, class, before we keep reading, what has happened so far in the story?
Okay, so he was a farmer boy.
Oh, wow, that's some great observation. Anything else?
He hates cheating.
That's very true. He was known as Honest Abe. Abraham Lincoln. Anything else?
He stands up for his ground.
Yep, that's very true. And now we're going to see what else may happen or what else he may go through, okay? Now let's finish the story.
Before I got the big job, war. America was facing one of the greatest fights in our history, the Civil War. One side wanted to let the slaves go free. The other side,
We want to keep slavery going, and we'll fight anyone who says otherwise.
if I turned my head and looked away, I would have avoided the fight. But if I learned anything in life, it was this. When someone needed help, I wasn't so good at looking away.
I'm sorry, I cannot allow that. What did you say? You heard me. These people will be free.
The Civil War lasted longer than anyone thought. The fighting took a terrible toll. People on our side were ready to give up. To re-energize them, we held a big event in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The main speaker gave a speech that lasted nearly 2 hours. I gave a speech that lasted 2 minutes and used only 271 words. The most important 5 words I used.
All men are created equal.
Soon after, I helped pass a law that ended slavery in America and freed all those people. Then we ended the Civil War. As a result, we didn't just bring together these United States of America. We proved that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people would be dedicated to freedom and justice.
You know, in his speech, he told the crowd that no one would remember what he said at Gettysburg. Wanna bet?
In life, strength can take many forms, but there's nothing quite as strong as standing up for someone who needs it. No matter where you're from or how little you have, one thing that can never be taken away from you is your voice. When you find something you believe in, use your voice. And when you see injustice, speak louder than you've ever spoken before. When you do, it'll never be forgotten.
Look, he's on the penny.
I am Abraham Lincoln. I will never stop fighting for what's right. And I hope you'll remember that when you speak your mind and speak for others, there is no more powerful way to be heard. Thank you for visiting Grant.
That was such a great book, right? Now, just like before, when I put up our blank anchor chart, I want you to tell me what we read about, what we saw, anything that you remember that was kind of interesting. So, this is our blank anchor chart of Abraham Lincoln. We're going to say Abraham Lincoln was. So, who can tell me who he was?
Abraham Lincoln was a president.
President? Does anybody remember what president he was?
The 16.
Good job. He was the 16th. Can anybody tell me anything else they observed or noticed in the book?
Abraham Lincoln was an honest man.
He was honest. Good job. Can another student tell me anything else?
Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves.
Yes, he did free the slaves. And remember the scene in the book when it showed him seeing the slaves? He was really, really sad. So he made a mission that everyone should be equal. So that's why he freed them. Okay, let's get one more student. What can you else you tell me?
He loved reading books.
He did love reading books. He was, at a very young age, he even got to read the book about George Washington. Now, as y'all can see, we wrote down a few different facts and observations from the book that we just read, and these are all really great observations because it really helped us learn who Abraham Lincoln was. Now, let's move on to our next activity. For this activity, we're going to play a short game. And based on this game, you're going to tell me yes or no, maybe, I don't know. The game is called Four Corners, but since we don't have much room here, I will be passing out the cards to you. And every time I ask the question, you will answer with your response. Okay? Now, here's the first one. It's I do not know, if you don't know the answer, and it's okay. Maybe, like, it could be, or you don't know. No and yes. So here, I'll pass you the responses, and then every time I ask you a question, you will let me know. Okay. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. First question. Was Abraham Lincoln president? Good job. Second question. Did Abraham Lincoln's mother pass away? Okay, good job. Next question. Did Abraham Lincoln end slavery? Alrighty. Did Abraham Lincoln start the Civil War? Okay. Was Abraham Lincoln an honest man? Good job. And was Abraham Lincoln born in Kentucky? Okay. Now that we finished playing the game, those were all great responses and y'all all did so well. Now we're going to go on to watch a video. And when we watch this video, I want you to pay really, really close attention to it. And if you would like, you can even write some notes down on a piece of paper. Because after we watch this video, we're going to play an activity. And we're going to do an activity. And this activity is really important. So y'all pay close attention to the video, okay?
President of the United States was born February 12, 1809 in Kentucky. His father was a farmer and his family was very poor, living in a small, one-room log cabin. While Lincoln was still very young, his family moved to Indiana and then again to Illinois. He only went to school for 1 year, but he loved books and learning and taught himself as much as he could. When he was 22 years old, Abraham Lincoln left home to work at a general store. It was there that he got his nickname, Honest Abe. Once a customer accidentally overpaid by a few pennies, and that night, when the store closed, Abraham Lincoln walked for miles to take the money back. In 1832, Lincoln ran in an election to become a member of the Illinois state legislature, but he lost. After that, he served as a captain in the army, and then he started working as a lawyer and got married. In 1846, he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. In 1860, he ran for president. It was a difficult time in the United States. The North and the South disagreed on a lot of things, and it was getting worse. One thing they disagreed on was slavery. The northern states did not want any more slavery. The southern states wanted to keep their slaves. Abraham Lincoln did not like slavery either. He was elected president because he had the support of the northern states. He had almost no support from the southern states. As soon as he became president, southern states began seceding from the Union. That means they decided they didn't want to be part of the United States anymore. President Lincoln was determined to keep the country together, and in 1861, a war started. It was the Civil War, a terrible, bloody war that lasted 4 years. On January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, an order that freed all the slaves in the southern states. A few years later, he helped to pass the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which made slavery illegal everywhere in the United States. The Civil War finally ended on April 9th, 1865. President Lincoln wanted to put the country back together and help the South rebuild. Unfortunately, he did not live to see that happen. Less than a week after the end of the Civil War, Lincoln and his wife were watching a play at the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C., when he was shot in the head by a man named John Wilkes Booth. Abraham Lincoln died the next morning on April 15, 1865. He was the first American president to be assassinated. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I want it said of me by those who knew me best, that I always plucked a thistle and planted a flower where I thought a flower would grow." He is widely considered to be one of the greatest presidents in American history. His leadership during the Civil War and his defense of human liberty make him an American hero. His face is on pennies and $5 bills. He was included in Mount Rushmore, and a memorial for him stands in Washington, D.C. I hope you enjoy learning about Abraham Lincoln. Goodbye till next time.
Okay, class, wasn't that such an exciting video? Now, who can tell me what we watched in that video?
Okay, so he ran for president in 1860.
That's very true. He was president. He was actually the 16th president, like you said before, and he was one of the best presidents. Can anybody else tell me anything else?
He was shot dead.
He was actually the first president who was killed and was assassinated, but it's okay because he was still seen and known as someone who was great and accomplished a lot in his life. Now that we have discussed and reviewed the video a little more, we're going to move on to our last and final activity. And like I said before, it was really important to pay attention to the video. Right now we're going to do a foldable. And this is how it's going to look. You're going to cut out your Honest Abe and you're going to paste it on your foldable. Here you're going to use flaps and you're going to write his name at the top. And then you're going to add whatever you want to the other tabs. And then inside it, I want you to write down a few facts or information over why you wrote that name. Okay, class? And I will leave this up here if you need any help or you need to see it again. It'll be up here for you to see. I will also have sentence starters up here if anybody needs them. They'll be right up next to the foldable, so y'all can come and see them. Okay, now I'll be passing up your supplies. Okay, I'll give you a few minutes, and then I will discuss it again, and you pass it up to me, okay? Here is your head. Okay. Don't forget to cut it out and paste it. Remember, if you need any help, you can raise your hand. I'll be walking around. Give you a little few more minutes. You're doing really good, class. Don't rush. Remember, it's all about what you want to put on there. We're doing really good. few more minutes.